It happened in Mosul in the late summer of 2006. My first rotation with the team, the first time I learned the sky wasn't always on our side. We were after a bomb maker, nothing big for that year, just another hot night moving over tight roofs and bad alleys. Then the city went quiet in a way that felt wrong. Animals gone. Weird signs on the roofs. Something watching from above where we couldn't spot it. I still remember the moment the air shifted. So before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe. All right, let's begin. I still remember the heat on that roof in Mosul, late summer 2006. The kind of heat that sat on your shoulders like someone leaning on you. Evening slipping into night, but the air never cooled. It stayed thick and dusty, humming with generators and drifting trash smoke. Everything had that dull orange glow from the city's lights. Even the shadows looked tired. It was my first rotation with the team. First real one anyway. I had trained with them back at Bragg, but that was clean and safe. This was different. This was a city built tight, packed with alleys so narrow 2 men couldn't pass shoulder to shoulder. Satellite dishes stacked on roofs like scales on some old beast. Every sound bounced off concrete. You could hear kids yelling somewhere below, dogs fighting in trash piles, scooters whining through the streets. And under all that, the quiet stuff you knew mattered more. The wrong engine backfiring, the too long silence behind a window, the sudden dark in a house that should have had a generator running. I was SSG Evan Mercer back then. They called me Rook because I was new to the team and because I kept doing everything by the book. Trying too hard, watching everybody. Sticks, our team sergeant, Doc Alvarez, Wire Kim, and Kareem, our partner sergeant from the Iraqi unit. Every one of them acted like the world had already shown them every bad trick it had. I copied their movements, their tone, even how they breathed when things got tense. I didn't want to mess anything up. The mission was simple on paper. Hit a suspected bomb maker's house. Grab him if he was there. Snatch any materials. Keep it quiet. No civilians hurt. No loud hero crap. This was the real world stuff. Go in, get proof, stop a bomb before it could tear open a convoy or a school, or some poor kids kicking a ball in the street. We were supposed to have a quick helo drop on the outskirts, then push rooftops. But airspace changed. Weather got stupid. Something about crosswinds and a medevac needing priority. Didn't matter. Higher cut our birds, so we were pushed into a ground infill, which meant way more time exposed, more blind corners, more chances for some idiot to spot us moving like ghosts over the roofs. Sticks took it in stride. He always did. Calm and strict. He never said he cared about us, but he showed it in the way he planned routes and double-checked angles. Doc Alvarez barely talked at all unless it mattered. Wire fought with his gear the whole time, swearing under his breath at the radio and the feed going in and out because half the damn city had metal hanging everywhere. Kareem moved like he'd lived on these roofs his whole life. Maybe he had. He understood their language, the creaks, the loose bricks, the way dust collected in corners that meant no one had walked there in weeks. We set up on an old rooftop 2 buildings from the target. The bomb maker's place looked like every other place around here. Flat roof, laundry lines, uneven brick, an old water tank leaning at an angle like it was tired too. We planned to hold overwatch until darkness got thicker, then slide across roofs, wrap around, and make entry through a blind side. Rooftop overwatch always felt strange to me. Too open. Nothing above you except sky and whatever might be looking down. I kept low behind a short wall and watched the city breathe. People shouting far away. A truck grinding its gears half a mile out. The thing called a prayer drifting through the heat. For a little while, it felt routine. The kind of slow time that gets into your head. You listen more than you look. You start picking apart the difference between normal city noise and the kind you only hear before something bad. Wire muttered at his thermal. Dead spot again. Damn metallic clutter. Hold still, maybe I can work this angle. Sticks whispered back, make it work. I scanned a block over and saw something that didn't fit. A goat dead laid out on a rooftop like someone had set it there for inspection. No mess. No blood sprayed or dragged. Just a goat missing one clean chunk from its side. Not chewed. Not hacked. Removed. Precise. Like it had been taken in one confident pass. I stared at it longer than I should have. Doc moved over and leaned just enough to see what I was looking at. He didn't grunt or crack a joke, just looked. thought about it. Then he pulled back and said nothing. That scared me more than if he'd said something weird. I kept telling myself this was Iraq. People did all sorts of odd things with dead animals. Ritual, trash, food, something I didn't understand. Local weirdness, that was all. But my brain didn't buy it. Something about the shape of the missing piece bothered me. Too smooth, too deliberate. Kareem came over after a few minutes. He didn't even look at the goat. He just kept himself tucked under the little awning edge like he didn't want the open sky touching him. He said nothing, but he kept glancing upward in these quick, clipped looks, not like checking for drones or helos, more like checking for something he hoped wasn't there. Rooftops were supposed to be safer. The old city was a maze of choke points, sniper windows, and courtyards waiting to swallow you. Up high, you had eyes and air. Tonight, it felt like the opposite. Sticks whispered, "We hold 10 more, then shift." His voice always sounded like gravel. Even when he whispered, it carried authority. I nodded. Tried to relax. Tried to act like my heart wasn't banging around in my vest. The hum of the city rolled around us. The heat crawled across my arms. Dust drifted past, glowing under streetlights. Normal Iraq night. I checked my sights again. Checked the radio. Checked the rooftop edges for movement. All standard. All fine. But every time I looked at that dead goat, laid out too cleanly, I felt a small knot tighten behind my ribs. Wire muttered, "Rook, rotate 10 degrees left. You might pick up that balcony better." "Got it," I whispered. He frowned at his feed. Weird blank spots. Might be interference. Everything was interference here. Bad metal. Bad angles. But the way he said it made it feel off. I tried not to think about it. 10 more minutes passed. Maybe more. Hard to tell. Time stretched when nothing happened. Then the wind, or what little wind existed, shifted. Hot, dirty air brushed across the roof in a sudden gust. It felt heavier than it should have. Almost like a pressure drop before a storm, except the sky was clear. I looked up without meaning to. Just stars, dull from haze. Open sky. Nothing else. Still, my body reacted before my brain caught up. Shoulders tightening, breathing shallow. Like something old and buried inside me, wanted undercover. I shook it off and tried to focus on the mission. We were about to start moving. Sticks gave the nod. Quiet transition, standard rooftop link-up. Would take us around a chimney line, over a narrow gap, then across a shadowed ridge. Normal stuff. But as I prepped to shift, I caught myself scanning the skyline again, looking between the scattered antennas and water tanks, checking empty spaces. I told myself it was nerves. First rotation nerves, wanting to impress, wanting to live through the night. But deep down, in a place I didn't want to admit existed, I knew something else was gnawing at me. The feeling that the roof wasn't just a roof. The feeling that above us wasn't just sky. The feeling of exposure, pure and simple. Something about that dead goat had opened a door in my brain, and now the night had room to breathe inside it. Sticks whispered, "Move." I stood, kept low, and followed the others across the roof line. But I didn't stop checking the dark above us. Couldn't. Because for the first time since arriving in Iraq, I felt like there was something up there. And whatever it wasn't human. We shifted to the next roof, slow and quiet. The night wrapped around us, thick and stale. I kept my head down, but my eyes kept drifting to the edges, then up. Couldn't help it. Felt like the air itself was waiting. Doc crouched near the dead goat we had to pass. He didn't waste movement, he never did. He pulled a glove on, rolled the carcass just enough to check the missing section. No dragging, no tearing, no knife chatter on bone. Just a clean removal. Too clean. He didn't announce anything, didn't theory craft. Doc only spoke when something hit a line in his head. "This isn't how anything here eats," he whispered. That was all. Then he stood and moved on. Didn't look back. I swallowed hard and followed. My mouth tasted like dust and metal. The target house was 2 roofs over, sitting lower than the rest, like a squat bunker wedged between taller buildings. Through optics, it looked normal until you watched the pigeons. They stayed near every other corner except one, a whole section of roof they refused to land on. They fluttered away from it like something brushed them unseen. A torn cloth hung near that corner. Every other cloth on every other line hung still in the dead air. That one twitched like something disturbed it, then settled, then twitched again. Wire noticed it too. He didn't say anything to me, but I saw his jaw clench. We stayed tucked under the highest edge of the roof, letting the darker parts hide us. Sticks kept scanning the alley, the windows, the movement patterns. Normal things a team lead checks. Kareem wasn't focused on normal things. He kept close to the walls, avoiding open spaces like they were traps. His eyes flicked up every few seconds. Real fast. Real tight movements. He didn't want the sky on him. At first, I thought he was just being careful. Locals knew their city better than we ever would. But this was different. He wasn't scanning for drones or aircraft or spotters. This was deeper, primitive almost. Like he expected something floating over the roofs. He caught me watching him. For a second, I thought he'd explain what he saw or felt. Instead, he just shook his head and whispered, "Stay close to cover. No story. No reason. Just the rule." I wanted to ask questions, but I didn't want to sound like some rookie begging for reassurance. So I stayed quiet and kept moving. Wire adjusted his feed and hissed through his teeth. "Rewind 5 seconds," he whispered to himself. Then again. "What the hell? What do you have?" Sticks asked. "I don't know." Blank smear. Same angle twice. Camera glitch? Maybe. Doesn't feel like one. Wire didn't look at me, but I could feel his unease. Thermal always gave you something, even if it was garbage data. This was different. A patch of nothing had crossed the skyline like a curtain pulled too fast. Sticks didn't press him. Sticks didn't mock anything he didn't understand. If it concerned his team, it concerned him. I settled back behind a raised section of roof and peeked over the edge. The city rolled out in uneven blocks. Fires burned in trash cans. A dog barked at something, then went silent. A scooter whined by. Normal sounds. But they didn't feel normal anymore. My skin prickled along my arms. My breath felt too loud. I checked my watch even though there was no reason to. The second hand dragged slower than it should. We were about to move again. A slow crawl along the ridgeline, then down onto a balcony that'd give us a path to the target. But something wasn't right. The air felt off, like pressure was building. I shifted my weight and scanned the skyline again. Behind a squat building, I thought I saw movement, just a flick of darkness sliding over darker sky. Gone before I could fix on it. Probably nothing. But my heart didn't believe that. Sticks tapped my shoulder. "Rook, on me." "Roger." We stacked along a low wall and prepared to move. That was when it hit me. Not a sound, not a sight. Just a realization. The thing crawling under my skin wasn't nerves, wasn't rookie jitters. It was the feeling prey gets when it knows a predator is somewhere above it. A cold truth settled into my stomach. Something was watching us, not from a window, not from an alley, from the sky. And whatever it was, it didn't care about our rifles or our training or our mission. It was just waiting. Waiting for us to leave cover. Waiting for us to move into the open. Wire whispered, "Sticks, we have to shift soon." But I'm telling you, something crossed my feed. Big, fast. Sticks didn't dismiss it. He didn't even look bothered. He just nodded once and said, "Then we move tighter. No unnecessary exposure." Kareem's eyes lifted upward again. Same exact angle. Same exact motion. Not hope. Not fear. Recognition. He knew. He knew before any of us. We started preparing to transition into movement, and the night pressed in like a warning. My fingers felt cold even in the heat. We had a mission to finish. But for the first time in Iraq, I wasn't thinking about the target. I was thinking about whatever waited above us. Whatever had taken that clean piece off a goat without leaving a trace. Whatever could cross thermal without a signature. Whatever made a grown NCO refuse to look at the sky for too long. I tightened my grip on my rifle, and I realized this wasn't nerves. This was instinct. Old, buried, primal. A voice in my head saying, "You're being watched." We started shifting across the roofline, tight and controlled. The night pressed harder the farther we moved. Every footstep felt too loud, even though we were barely making sound. I stayed low behind the short ledge, eyes on the next crossing point. Then something clattered beside me. I froze. It was small, pale, and rolled once before stopping near my knee. A bone. Fresh. Wet on one end. Not old trash. Not dry livestock junk from some rooftop cookout. fresh. I stared at it, waiting for my brain to give me a normal explanation. It didn't. Someone or something had dropped it. Kareem sucked in a breath through his teeth. I looked at him. His face went tight. Not scared exactly, but resigned, like he'd expected this moment. He crouched beside me and whispered one word, low and steady, like stating a fact. Suresh. He said it without drama, without story. Just the name, like it belonged to something real. I waited for Sticks to wave it off, for someone to joke. Nobody did. Wire glanced up at the sky, then down at the bone, then at Kareem. His jaw locked. Sticks moved in close. Talk, Kareem kept his voice low. Old thing. Hunters from above. It takes animals. Sometimes men. You stay under cover. You do not give it open sky. Sticks didn't argue with superstition. He treated it like threat reporting. You seen signs before? Kareem nodded. Long time ago, outside the city. You don't stay under open roofs when the night feels heavy, Wire whispered. Heavy like now. Sticks exhaled once. Calm. We're continuing the mission, but we treat overhead as hostile. Keep to walls. Move fast. Move covered. He wasn't mocking anything. He wasn't overreacting. He was reading the room. The tension in Kareem, the bone dropping from nowhere, the dead goat laid too clean. All data points. I swallowed and looked upward again. Nothing. Just dark sky smeared with haze. We started moving again, but the pace changed. Tighter spacing. More time under awnings and half-fallen satellite dishes. We stayed close to the tallest parts of roofs, letting them shield us. Then I saw it, not clearly. Not enough to say shape or color or detail. Just a flick like a void blotting out a patch of stars for half a second, then gone as if the sky swallowed it again. My breath caught. My brain refused to label it. Too big, too smooth, too quiet. Predators in the air always made noise, wings, engines, anything. This thing didn't. We dropped off the roofline into a narrow walkway between two leaning structures. Metal scraped softly somewhere above. Not wind, something shifting weight. Every instinct inside me screamed to hide. Sticks raised a fist, halting us. We stacked against rough walls, breathing slow. The city that had always felt loud suddenly felt like someone had turned the volume down. Dogs stopped barking. A generator sputtered and died. Even the air felt held in place. Sticks whispered, "Move, now." We followed him through the tight cut, keeping our heads down. I checked the sky through gaps. Every open slice felt like a kill zone waiting to happen. We reached the next rooftop edge, preparing to climb up and shift positions again. But something changed. The atmosphere. The silence. The tension. It wasn't the city anymore. It was the thing above us. It owned the rooftops. It controlled the air. It moved where it wanted, when it wanted, and none of our gear could catch it or track it. We were trespassing in something's hunting ground. Something old, something comfortable dropping warnings in the form of fresh bones. Kareem didn't try to cross the next gap. He backed away from it, eyes locked upward. "No open jumps tonight," he whispered. "Not now." Sticks didn't push him. He didn't say we had to stick to plan. He just nodded once. Kareem knew this ground best. I climbed after the others into a recessed walkway where broken bricks hung over us like jagged teeth. It was ugly cover, but it kept the sky out. My legs felt tight. Every sound made me flinch. I kept expecting claws or a beak or something to come diving out of the dark. We reached a spot where the streetlights cast a faint glow through cracks. I looked up one last time before we cut deeper between buildings. And in that brief moment, I understood something simple and terrifying. This wasn't random. This wasn't some odd wildlife or a freak bird or local superstition. This thing was hunting, and it had noticed us. The old city around us, with all its noise and heat and tight corners, suddenly felt like a trap, designed not for men, but for something that could strike from above whenever it wanted. We moved off the rooftop line fast, into the tightest spaces we could find. But even tucked between walls, I could feel it. Watching, waiting, tracking. We were still on mission, but now the mission felt secondary. We pushed deeper into the old neighborhood, sticking close to walls and half-collapsed structures. Every open patch of sky felt like a threat. Kareem kept glancing upward even when we were under cover, like he expected the roof itself to lift off. The city around us wasn't quiet anymore. It was tense, like it sensed something wrong overhead. A burst of gunfire cracked from somewhere ahead, short, panicked, uncontrolled, not aimed at ground level. The muzzle flashes lit the walls upward, like whoever was firing was trying to hit something above them. "Contact?" I whispered. Sticks shook his head, not at us. More bursts. Then a scream cut off mid-breath. Then nothing. No running, no shouting, no follow-up shots. Just silence. Doc muttered, "That wasn't a normal fight." We moved fast, controlled, toward the sound's direction. A roof 2 blocks ahead sat lower than the rest. As we approached, something hit it with a deep, final thud. Heavy. Wrong. Like a full-grown man dropped from a high window with no warning. We froze. Wire lifted his thermal slowly, trying to angle around clutter. "I don't see. Hold on." He stopped talking. A shape swept across the roof. Not a clean look, more like a distortion of the air. A rush of displaced wind followed, strong enough to rattle a loose dish near us. A second later, that dish snapped clean off its mount and skittered across the roof, metal screeching. Nothing touched it. Nothing we could see. My pulse hammered so hard I thought the whole team could hear it. We crept closer to the roof edge of our own building. I risked a glance between bricks. In the faint light from the street, I saw the body that had landed. Mangled, twisted wrong, but not ripped apart like I expected. More like something had grabbed it mid-air, squeezed too tight, and dropped it when done. Above the body, I saw a silhouette move along a higher rooftop, backlit for half a second as it passed in front of a dim satellite dish. Long neck, a narrow, spear-like head, a body bigger than any bird I'd ever seen. Wings stretched wide, skin hanging like old canvas with holes and rough patches, then gone, silent. So silent it made my teeth hurt. Wire whispered, no way, that's real." Doc didn't answer him. Kareem said nothing. His breathing had gone slow and controlled, the kind of breathing a man used when trying not to trigger something hunting him. Sticks looked at each of us. We finished the objective, if possible. But we don't die for it. Keep priorities straight. He wasn't pretending this thing wasn't there. He wasn't trying to explain it. He was pushing us forward because stopping meant staying too long in the open. We moved toward the bomb maker's block. I could already smell chemicals on the wind-sharp, metallic biting. Someone in that house had been working recently. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't the only threat tonight. The old houses grew tighter together. Bits of laundry hung limp across alley gaps. Loose electrical wire drooped like vines. The clutter overhead gave us moments of protection. But every time the clutter thinned, I felt the weight of the sky press down. We took a turn into a cramped corridor between 2 warped walls. A streetlight flickered ahead. Something large shifted on a roofline at the edge of its glow. Not enough to see detail, just the shadow of mass. We froze. A scraping sound moved overhead, slow, testing, like talons searching for grip. Then silence again. Sticks motioned us forward. As we neared the target house, it became obvious this wasn't just a possible bomb maker. Fumes leaked from thin window cracks. Metal fragments were scattered in the dust near the doorway. A scorched patch on the outer wall showed someone had tested something recently. The threat was real, human, and close. "Lovely," Doc muttered. Wire said, "2 problems tonight." Sticks said, "1 at a time." But even as he said it, a rush of wind scraped across the street above us, a low, fast glide. A shadow passed through the flickering streetlight, too large to be a bird, too smooth to be a bat. It circled, not drifting, searching, controlling the roofline the way a sniper controlled an alley. Every rooftop felt like its perch. Every open sky patch felt like its mouth. I hugged the wall harder, gripping my rifle until my fingers hurt. We slid into position near the objective, tucked behind a broken courtyard arch. Sticks whispered, "We proceed, but no open exposure. We move building to building. No roof jumps unless forced." Kareem nodded immediately. "Not on the roofs. Not now." Wire risked one more upward glance. "It's close. It knows we're here." I didn't want to believe that, but the empty roof lines told the truth. No birds, no stray cats, no movement except what circled above. Even the city dogs had gone silent. We stepped deeper toward the target building, hugging the crooked walls. I expected it to drift off, to lose interest, to move back toward wherever it came from. But as we reached the final approach, I knew the truth. It wasn't passing through. It wasn't wandering. It was hunting. And this entire block was its territory. We moved toward the roof where the body had slammed down, not because we wanted to, but because Sticks needed to know what we were dealing with. Intel wasn't just papers and radio chatter. Sometimes it was blood on concrete. The place was one block over, low and flat. We climbed up a side wall where loose bricks gave handholds. The air felt heavier the higher we got. My neck kept tightening like something was staring at the top of my helmet. The roof itself looked wrong before I even stepped onto it. Concrete gouges ran deep near the center. Long, curved scratches carved in lines, like something huge had landed hard and pushed off again, not the marks of a fall. More like controlled impact, a landing zone. A tacky smear pooled near the gouges. Not blood, not oil. It smelled like dust, old fish, and something sour. Biological, but not from anything I recognized. Doc crouched over it. He didn't touch it, didn't try to sample it. Just leaned in, blinked once, then stood. "That's not from a dog," he said. That was his whole verdict. Sticks ran his fingers along one of the gouges, checking depth. Strong, heavy. Whatever hit here didn't fall. It stuck the landing. Kareem stayed in the doorway, refusing to step fully onto the roof. His face stayed tight. His voice barely carried. "Do not stay in the open. It learns. It waits." Wire shook his head. "Learn? What is this thing?" Kareem answered without looking at him. "Something old." We gathered under a short wall that gave partial cover from above. The night sky hung wide and empty above us. Every few seconds, I thought I saw movement at its edges. But when I tried to focus, it vanished. Sticks touched his radio, keeping his whisper low. "We have two choices. Push the mission or pull out. If we pull out, we do it through covered routes only. If we push on, same rules." Wire said. "Nobody back home is gonna believe us." Doc said. "Doesn't matter if they believe it." I stayed quiet. My brain fought itself. Mission meant something. That bomb maker could kill dozens, maybe more. But every instinct in my body clawed at me to leave the rooftops behind and get under something solid. Sticks looked right at me. "Rook, thoughts?" Caught off guard, I spoke before I planned it. "We stay covered. We finish if we can. But roof jumps are done." Sticks nodded once. "Agreed." Kareem finally stepped forward, tapping the outer wall. "There is a way. Older path. Drainage cuts. Narrow. Low. It winds through abandoned parts of the block. Takes us toward the objective house from the ground side. Safe?" Wire asked. "Safer than the sky." That was good enough for Sticks. Rooted. We dropped back into the building and took a dark stairwell down. The place smelled like mildew and dust. I checked windows, corners, anything that might give away our silhouette. We reached the drainage cut, a slit between two structures that ran in jagged patterns through the old city. Trash piled waist-high in spots. Broken pipes hung like ribs. It felt cramped, ugly, and dangerous, which made it perfect. Something that hunted from above couldn't strike cleanly in there. We moved single file, Sticks in front, Kareem guiding with quiet hand signals. Wire behind him, clinging to walls whenever the ceiling dipped low. Doc watched our back. I stayed near the center, gripping my rifle until my hands went numb. Halfway through, we paused where two alley cuts intersected. Overhead wires crisscrossed above us, low and tangled. Kareem tapped a wall. "This is where we go up one level. Quiet." The climb was easy, but the moment we reached the new walkway, I felt the difference. More open air, less protection. Sticks saw it too. He pointed forward. "That's our kill lane. Open stretch. No overhead cover." I scanned it. Maybe 20 yards of exposed walkway. Nothing above but sky. Wire exhaled slow. "We can't go around?" "No," Kareem said. "The other paths are worse. This is the only one that leads to the target unseen." Doc checked the skyline through a gap. "If we cross, we do it running." We all stared at the open strip. The hairs on the back of my neck lifted like someone had run cold fingers down my spine. Sticks whispered, "We make it fast. One group, no stopping." You fall, you crawl, nobody looks up. I swallowed. Roger. My gut twisted hard. I knew before we even stepped out what that open stretch meant. It was a feeding ground, a clear shot for whatever circled above. Sticks looked at each of us. We commit. We crouched at the edge of the covered space. I tightened my grip. My feet trembled even though I forced them still. Sticks raised 2 fingers, then 1. Then, we ran. As we burst into the open, the night felt like it held its breath. Somewhere above, something shifted, and I knew without seeing it that it had found us. We sprinted into the open strip, 20 yards, maybe less. Felt like a mile. My boots slapped the concrete harder than I wanted, but there was no time to fix it, no time to breathe. Just run. Halfway across, the air above us shifted. Not wind. Wait. Something large moving fast. Dust burst off a wall beside me in a sharp explosion. A shadow dropped through the darkness, too quick to see, too silent to track. Someone shouted a name. I don't even remember which one. Then the voice cut off, not faded. Cut. I looked back even though Sticks said not to. I couldn't help it. One of us lifted straight off the ground, legs kicking once, then gone beyond the roofline. Carried upward into the black before anyone could fire. No scream. Just absence. It felt like being punched in the chest. Like betrayal. Leaving someone behind in the sky. A place we couldn't reach. A place we weren't meant to. Stick snapped. Keep moving. Go. Only reason I listened was because stopping meant dying next. We crashed into the next covered section so fast we piled into each other. Metal pipes rattled. Gravel skittered. I slammed into a wall hard enough to bruise. Wires sucked in a breath, frantic. It took him. Sticks. Sticks held up his hand. His voice stayed low, sharp. We pushed forward. We can't help him up there. Doc whispered something under his breath. Not a prayer, not shock. Just a man adjusting to a new kind of horror. Kareem kept staring upward, jaw tight, as if expecting another strike. Move deeper. It cannot reach where the buildings close. We followed him because there was nothing else to do. Fear didn't matter. Orders didn't matter. Survival was the only thing left. The alleys tightened. Walls leaned inward like broken ribs. Trash piles forced us to step high or squeeze sideways. My rifle kept snagging on corners. My lungs burned from the sprint. Every few seconds, we heard something on the roofs above. A scrape. A shift of weight. A slow, deliberate tap on stone. Not random. Not wind. Tap, tap, tap. Kareem froze. It's on the ground. Wire whispered, no. No. It doesn't come inside alleys. A shadow crossed a narrow gap above us. Not overhead flight. Lower. Hunting inside the same maze we used. Doc said it plain. It's learning. We didn't run. Running made noise. Running made chaos. Instead, we moved faster and controlled steps, breathing through our teeth, hugging walls so close the concrete scraped our shoulders. The city shifted around us. Doors that had been open were now shut. Curtains drawn tight. No whispers, no movement. Even the stray dogs knew. They had vanished into holes and crawl spaces, letting the night do its work. Every silhouette on every roof felt like it hid eyes watching us. Not human eyes. Something else. Something patient. My nerves frayed. I stumbled once on loose debris. Wire pulled me upright without breaking stride. No one said anything. No jokes. No comments. We didn't have room for them. One wrong turn sent us into a dead-end courtyard. A broken fountain sat dry in the middle. I didn't want to be in the center of anything. Open space meant death. Sticks backtracked us quickly, his movements tight. The radio crackled once too loud in the silence. We all froze. Sticks killed the volume with a sharp twist. Above us, something scraped again. Slow, testing. Closer. Tap, tap, tap. The sound moved along the rooftops, edging the alley, like it was pacing, tracking, hurting us. Kareem whispered, stay under, always under. We pushed through 2 narrow door frames and entered a shadowed alcove that smelled like mildew and old wood. The space felt tighter, but safer. The ceiling hung low over us, cluttered with beams. For a moment, we caught our breath. Just a moment. Sticks pointed ahead. Target house is close. We move slow and controlled. We enter. Outside belongs to it. He didn't need to say more. We crept forward until the bomb maker's house came into view. A squat building, older than the others. Cracked plaster. Reinforced door. Chemical smell bleeding through the walls. A faint, sharp bite in the air that burned the back of my throat. The closer we got, the more obvious it became. This wasn't guesswork. The guy inside had been building something. Metal scraps littered the ground. A singed curtain hung half off its rod. A scorch mark climbed the outer wall. Wire muttered, "At least one threat we understand." Doc said, "Not sure which one's worse." Before we breached, the tapping started again. Not overhead now. Ahead. Inside the alley system. Tap, 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 coming from ground level. My blood went cold. Creatures that hunted the sky didn't drop into alleys. They didn't stalk corners. They didn't stay low. Except this one. It had descended into our world. Into our maze. "Move," Sticks whispered. "Inside. Now." We stacked on the entrance. Kareem covered the rear, shaking his head like he knew whatever followed us wouldn't stop at the threshold. Sticks signaled. We flowed in. The door cracked under controlled force, and we slipped through the narrow entryway in seconds. Inside smelled wrong. Like burned metal, old sweat, fuel, and something chemical that stung the eyes. The space was tight, littered with wires, pressure cookers, scrap metal, and half-built devices. A single dim bulb flickered overhead. The air tasted hot and stale. My lungs tightened. The place felt like it might explode if we breathed too hard. But it also felt safer than the open air outside. Barely. We spread through rooms, clearing corners. Clear left. Clear right. Stairs unstable, Doc warned, kicking a rotted step. I checked the back room and found scorch marks on the floor from some recent test. A bag of powder had spilled over a table. A small fan buzzed in a corner, fighting a losing battle against fumes. The whole house felt like stepping inside someone's bad intentions. But at least it had walls. Then the tapping returned. Closer. Inside the building this time. Not loud, not rushed. Just a slow, steady sound moving along the outside walls toward the entry. Tap, 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 Wire whispered. It followed us. Inside. It followed us inside. Doc's eyes narrowed. That means it wants us. Not the building. Us. Positions, Sticks said, voice low but firm. Hold inside. No one doze out. We gathered near the central room, weapons up, eyes on cracks in the walls and holes in the ceiling. My breathing felt too loud. Sweat dripped into my eyes. I wiped it away with a shaky hand. The tapping stopped. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then the roof creaked. Wood snapped. Plaster sifted down in thin streams. The creature was above us again, directly above. The house groaned under its weight, as if the roof wasn't meant to support something that size. Dust rained down in soft clouds. Something scraped across the top slow. Methodical. It was feeling the building, testing it, testing us. Sticks mouthed silently, hold. But holding didn't stop the fear crawling up my ribs. We had traded one kind of death for another. The sky had been dangerous, but at least it was open. In here, the walls trapped us. The rooms funneled us. If it broke through the roof, we'd be jammed in tight with no angle to shoot up. And it knew that. It knew. The roof flexed again. A thin crack split across the plaster above wire. More dust fell. Sticks moved us back slowly, into the farthest interior room with the most overhead support. But even that wasn't much. Outside, the city stayed dead silent. Inside, the creature settled its weight on the roof, waiting, hovering over us with patience only predators carried in their bones. I felt it then, not just fear. Something worse. The realization that this thing wasn't confused. It wasn't lost. It wasn't reacting. It was hunting with intent, predicting us, driving us, trapping us. We had taken shelter inside the bomb maker's home. But all we'd really done was step into the dark with something smarter than we expected, and it wanted us cornered. The roof kept flexing above us, slow and heavy. The sound wasn't frantic. It wasn't random. It was controlled. Whatever was up there knew exactly how much weight to put down, how much pressure the old beams could handle, and how close it could get before breaking through. Sticks whispered, "Wire." Anything outside? Wire angled his thermal toward a broken window. The feed flickered. He swore under his breath. Static. Blank patches. It's like it knows where to move to kill the feed. Kareen pointed his chin toward the ceiling. It is older than this place. It knows how to hunt around stone and wood. Doc spat in the dust. Wonderful. The house felt like it was shrinking around us. Every room was packed with wires, scraps, chemicals, and half-assembled devices. Pressure cookers lined one wall like someone had been building a row of ugly little surprises. Nails glinted on a table. A stained work jacket hung from a hook, stiff with sweat and fuel. Sticks made the call. We need eyes outside. We need light. Anything that lets someone else see this damn thing. He keyed the radio low. Any unit near grid 2-4, request a flare or spotlight on our block. Limited burst. Over. Static. Dead air. Then a voice cut in, garbled but real. Say again. Limited visibility. We can push light for a few seconds only. That's enough, Sticks whispered. He pulled us deeper into the workshop room, away from the immediate roof weight. The smell hit harder there. Burned metal. Fuel. Something acrid that made my eyes water. We kept low under the beams, rifles up, facing every angle we could. Light incoming. The radio crackled. Sticks nodded. Hold. The flare hit the sky outside with a dull whump and lit the rooftops with a pale, drifting glow. Not bright, but enough to shape the shadows, and then we saw it. Through a broken window across two rooftops, backlit in the glow, a huge form unfolded from behind a water tank. Wings stretched wide, massive sheets of skin and bone, pocked and torn like old canvas. A long neck rose in a slow curve. Its head was narrow and sharp, like a spear point meant to punch through things, not tear them. Its body sat high on powerful joints. It did not flap like a bird. It controlled the air with small motions, as if the air itself obeyed it. Wire whispered, "Holy, it's real." Kareen looked at us all. Now you understand. The creature moved along the roof line with a grace that didn't match its size. Silent. Measured. A predator that had spent its whole life above things that never looked up. When the flare faded, it folded into the skyline and vanished behind the stacked shapes of buildings. Not like it hid. More like it knew how to erase itself from sight. Sticks didn't waste the moment. We moved to inner rooms. We hold until we get an opening. But the creature had already shifted its focus. The roof cracked, a beam snapped. Dust rained down in thick clumps, stinging my eyes. Then something punched through the ceiling. A spear-like shape fast jutted down 3 feet from Doc's head. It smashed into the plaster wall behind him so deep the tip vanished inside it. Doc threw himself aside. It's probing. The spearhead withdrew as fast as it came, ripping a chunk of plaster with it. The hole it left behind was clean and round, too clean for claws, too deliberate. I realized then that the creature didn't need to come inside. It could fish through openings. It could hit us through cracks, vents, holes, anything. The roof pounded again. Another crack spread across the ceiling, wider this time. Smoke drifted up from the workshop equipment, mixing with dust. Sticks shouted, "Move! Back rooms now!" We pushed through a narrow doorway into the next room. More pressure cookers, more wires. The air shimmered with chemical fumes. My throat burned. Another impact, harder. The entire building shook. A metal table toppled. Nails spilled across the floor. Wire grabbed my arm. If this place goes up, I know, I said. We were trapped between two kinds of death. The creature above us. The bomb maker's hellscape inside. Smoke thickened fast. Something had tipped or spilled. A sharp chemical burn stung my nostrils. Doc coughed. Something's reacting. This place is unstable. Then a tiny spark flicked somewhere behind us. Not an explosion. Just a spark. Enough to make my heart stop. The creature must have sensed it. The roof creaked as its weight shifted back. A low, rough sound followed like a breath or growl carried down the beams. It did not like fire, or heat, or smoke. Maybe all three. Sticks caught on immediately. It won't drop into a burning structure. That's our window. Another crack split the ceiling. A small, sharp beak shape jabbed through, punching deep into the room. It withdrew again, frustrated. Smoke grew denser. A low whine built in some metal canister behind us. The chemicals were heating up. Pressure building. Not good. Sticks didn't hesitate. Time to go. Back rooms. Tight courtyards. Move. We flowed into a rear chamber with low ceilings and tight walls. The smell of burning metal followed us, choking and hot. The creature paced above, its claws scraping concrete, tracking our movement from room to room. As we crossed into the final chamber at the back, a section of roof near the front caved in completely. The creature didn't drop inside, but it jabbed its head down again, snapping at the dust cloud, searching for us. Smoke blasted upward from the workshop area, forcing it back. Its wings thrashed once, displacing air hard enough to rattle the whole building. Sticks shoved us toward the courtyard exit. Out the back. Move. We hit the rear door just as the chemicals in the workshop flared up. Not an explosion, more like a violent cough of fire and smoke. The house groaned. The creature let out a harsh sound from the roof, something between a hiss and a choke. We burst into a tight courtyard with high walls. Smoke poured out behind us, curling upward in thick waves. The creature circled overhead but kept its distance from the rising column of heat. Rook, move, damn it. I forced myself up a broken step, lungs burning. The others were already through the next doorway, ducking under beams and collapsing shutters. The house behind us burned hotter. Wooden supports snapped. Fire crawled across wires and spilled containers. The whole place sounded like it wanted to implode. I risked one last look upward. Through the swirling smoke, I saw the shadow peel away from the rooftop, long, dark, drifting back from the heat. Not beaten, not scared, just annoyed. It shifted direction, angling away toward the outer rooftops as the fire thickened. It wasn't retreating because of us. It was retreating because the house had become unpredictable. Smoke hit us. Fire distorted air patterns. Heat forced it back. We had become too chaotic to hunt. We slipped into the next courtyard and then into a narrow passage that curved deeper into the block. My lungs burned from the smoke. My hands shook hard enough to make my rifle rattle. But we were alive. Barely. The creature was still out there. Still circling. Still deciding. But for the moment, smoke and fire had bought us a few breaths. Sticks signaled us onward. We keep moving. We use the chaos. Courtyard to courtyard. No sky exposure. Kareem led. Doc covered the rear. Wire checked angles. I followed, heart pounding so loud it felt like it shook dust loose. Behind us, the bomb maker's house collapsed inward with a heavy, muffled roar. Flames lit the alley in a dull orange pulse. Somewhere above that glow, something massive shifted in the sky. Watching, planning, waiting for us to step into open air again. We didn't stop moving. Not after the house collapsed. Not after the creature peeled away into the smoke. Sticks pushed us through the courtyards and into the tight cuts between buildings like he had a map burned into his skull. Kareem took the lead again, guiding us with practiced hands and quick glances upward. The air was still hot from the fire. Smoke clung to us, turned every breath into a scrape. My eyes burned. Doc coughed quietly into his sleeve, but he kept pace. Wire kept shaking one hand like he couldn't feel the fingers. Everyone had cuts, bruises, little burns. We all carried the same other injury too, the hole left by the man taken in the kill lane. The one we never even got to fight for. Kareem pointed us toward a narrow crack in the wall, looked like nothing, just broken stone and trash. But once inside, it bent downward and widened into a long, low drainage cut running under the edge of the old block. The air cooled fast. The sky disappeared above us. It felt like slipping into the lungs of the city. "Stay low," Kareem whispered. "It cannot follow in here," Sticks nodded. "Good. Move." We crouched low as we went. Pipes rattled over our heads. Water dripped somewhere deeper in. The path twisted in slow curves, leading us away from the burning house and toward the outskirts of the dense neighborhood. My knees ached. My shoulders screamed every time my pack scraped stone. But the deeper we went, the more the pounding in my head eased. No open sky above meant no hunting lanes. For the first time in what felt like an hour, I didn't hear the creature's weight shifting on roofs. No taps. No scraping. No air displacement. Just our breath, our gear, our boots scuffing old stone. We made it to the far end of the drainage cut where the old city met a stretch of rough ground, the kind of half-developed area nobody maintained, broken lots, dirt patches. Some old, low walls, a few shacks built out of scrap metal. Beyond that, hills rose like dark waves. Kareem held up a fist. Stopped cold. We all froze behind him. He scanned the sky with slow, deliberate breaths. Sticks whispered, "Do you see it?" "No," Kareem said. "But this is where it goes. Out there." He pointed toward the dark hills. Caves, old ground, places without people. Wire leaned close to me. "You think it nests out there?" Doc answered instead. "Everything has a home." I didn't like the way he said it. Too certain. We waited another minute, letting our eyes adjust. The smoke behind us thinned. The night felt wide again. The stars barely showed through the haze, but they were enough to make my stomach twist. Open sky again. Exposure. Sticks motioned. We crossed fast. Head for the vehicles. Get outside the block. We stayed under whatever scraps of overhead cover we could find. Leaning walls, broken tin sheets, anything. But it wasn't much. The open patches between shelters felt endless. My legs wanted to sprint. My brain wanted to freeze. My lungs wanted to turn back. But we crossed. When we reached the edge of the block, the rough ground stretched out ahead of us. A wind rolled across it, carrying the smell of dust and old earth. The kind of smell that lived far from cities. I turned to check the sky one more time, and I saw it. Not close. Not swooping down. High above the foothills, a shape drifting upward on a thermal. Wings tucked in slightly. Long neck stretched forward. Silent. Always silent. It wasn't fleeing. It wasn't wounded. It was leaving because the city didn't belong to it. It belonged out there, in the broken hills and deep cuts where no one walked at night, and now it was going home. My breath stalled. I watched it angle away, a dark outline against the faint stars, growing smaller as it climbed. Not flapping, controlling wind with tiny shifts of its wings, like it had done this for years, centuries. Stick saw it too. His jaw flexed once. "We're done here. Move." We did. We reached the vehicles. The engine sounded too loud for how quiet we felt. Nobody cheered. Nobody made jokes. Nobody even cursed. We just loaded up and drove. The ride back to the compound passed in a blur. My body shook from leftover adrenaline. My head buzzed with questions I didn't want answered. When we reached the gate, the guards looked at us like we'd crawled out of a blast zone. Soot streaked our faces. Clothes torn. Packs scorched. One seat empty. I felt the empty space harder than anything else. Inside debrief, the official version came together quick. Chaotic operation. Unexpected structural fire in the target building. Secondary hazards. One team member lost during movement under uncertain conditions. Hostile contact in the area. No mention of anything in the sky. The missing man became a combat loss with no clean detail. It wasn't a lie exactly. It just wasn't the truth. Afterward, we sat in silence in the team room. None of us looked at each other. None of us wanted to be the first to say it out loud. Sticks finally spoke. "We know what we saw. Leave it there." Wire nodded. Nobody would believe it anyway. Doc rubbed his eyes. "Doesn't matter. We know." I didn't talk. I didn't trust my voice. I kept replaying the moment the creature lifted our guy. The way his legs kicked once. The way the night swallowed him whole. The way none of us could do a damn thing. I thought I understood war before that night. I thought the world followed rules. Human rules. Even enemy rules. That if you trained hard, followed the right steps, kept your head down, you could fit the chaos into something you understood. But the sky didn't care about rules. And whatever lived in it didn't care who we were. Kareem stood last. He adjusted his gear, looked at us, and said something simple. "It was here before us. It will be here after." Then he walked out. No drama, no mysticism. Just truth spoken by someone who lived with old things longer than we had. Weeks passed. We rotated missions, cleaned gear, patrolled, ate crappy chow, argued about small things, slept too little. None of us talked about that night again. But one morning, Wire passed me a printed report someone had left on his desk by mistake. Something from a local unit out near the foothills. Livestock missing from small farms. Always at night. Always from open ground. No footprints. No dragging. Just gone. A piece missing here or there. Clean, controlled. Same pattern as before. Same neat removals. Same silence. I handed the paper back, stomach twisted in a knot. Wire didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The worst part wasn't that it lived. The worst part wasn't that it hunted. The worst part was knowing it had watched us long enough to learn how we moved, how we hid, how we feared the open sky. That we had given it something new information, and it had taken it home. Styx walked by as we folded the report up. He didn't ask. Just said, "Let it go, Rook. Some things don't fit." But I couldn't. Not fully, because somewhere beyond the city lights, in the rough hills and dark cuts of old land, something prehistoric was alive and waiting. Hunting, not a ghost, not a myth. Something real. Something that owned the night sky long before any of us ever walked under it. And now it knew we existed. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.